if you work with someone like Superhog, it's all white labeled with your branding. And you say to the guest at that point, okay, pay a $500 security deposit or pay $50, non-refundable. And if you damage anything up to $500, we won't chase you. And the psychology of that, and again, remember, you can play with the rate, so you can test and learn. If you're in a market with lower ADRs, you might want to make that 30.
Welcome to RevLabs by PriceLabs.
Welcome to the RevLabs podcast by PriceLabs. Today, we're talking about making more money, increasing revenue, but not through our net prices, but through ancillary revenues. What other kind of revenue streams you can have. And we have somebody who's really, really well placed to be talking about it. It's Leo Walton. He's a co-founder and chief of staff of Superhog. Without further ado, Leo, how are you?
Hi, my friend. I'm very well. I'm honored to be here speaking with you. Yeah, life is good. We are, what are we, sort of September in London. So we're beginning to see, as you know, in the UK, we go from summer to winter very quickly. So we're kind of getting there. The leaves are falling off the trees and it's getting colder. But life is good. Yeah, life is good.
Well, it's good to hear. And, where I'm sitting right now, not too far from you in Netherlands, it's the same kind of weather. It's really cold. But anyway, not only, we can talk with you about Superhog, what you guys do, and how you can help vacation rental companies increase that revenue. But you have a really, really breadth of experience and knowledge and all kind of ancillary revenue. So that's really why I really wanted to have you on the show. But maybe let's just start out to explain what you guys do. And also talking about revenues, how does that increase? Does that make a new revenue stream for vacation rental companies?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, Thibault. Thanks. So I cut my teeth in the vacation rental world with One Fine Stay. Now, I know you know that. We've spoken about it many times, but your audience might not. And so I've been in and around this obsession with how to monetize guests since around 2011, 2012. Because at that point, somebody at One Fine Stay said to me, you know where the hotel makes all their money? It's in the concierge and it's in the food and beverage. And it really stayed with me when that person said that, because I thought, God, that's so true. And we're all responsible for bringing people to amazing properties around the world. And then you give them the freedom to then buy their own food and have their own adventures. But increasingly, we're seeing that desire to monetize the guest come in because essentially technology can help create an environment where you can interact directly with your guest. And it's not just a revenue opportunity, it's also a marketing opportunity, right? So, which I'm sure we'll go on to speaking about. So at Superhog, so fast forward too many years. I had a full head of hair, fast forward 12 years, and here we are at Superhog, and we're providing trust tech solutions for host property managers, operators, which enable them to know that the guest that they're having in their home is trustworthy. And part of that process is interacting with them. And so part of that interaction can involve upselling certain products to them. That might be something that you might require them to take a damage waiver to book your property, so you can collect the damage waiver from them. That's a really good way of making revenue. It might be that you advertise particular guest products like cancellation, which you can monetize yourself because you can take the revenue from that product, or things like stay disruption. So in case the boiler explodes on the 4th day and they need to be moved into a hotel, you can sell that product to them through someone like Superhog, and you can take a cut of the revenue. So you can, it's quite a crude thing to say, I guess, but you can, in a sense, monetize risk. So that's one element of it, right? You can play into the fact that around the time that your guest is coming to book with you and they're going through that process, there might be a nervousness around, oh, what if I can't make the dates? Well, let's buy something more flexible then. Or what if the worst happens while I'm in stay? Okay, well, let's buy this product to make sure that doesn't happen. So with a purely Superhog hat on, that's how I would think about it. Also, with a Superhog hat on, because you do this guest screening process, which can include upsells as part of your journey with your guest, there is an amazing opportunity to get to know why they're coming, to get a real email address, get a real phone number, and start that bonding process. Because clearly, what's going to get you closer to them is if you then use that information you've got to send them a WhatsApp, send them a text, find out why they're coming, find out how you can help them, and then you can start suggesting services to them. So I definitely think it's a combination. I know we're going to go on to talk more broadly about what people can do, but it's a combination of leveraging technology, because the technology can put the products in front of your guests that they will click and buy, and mixing that with the personal service, so that you know why they're coming and you can then start to push the right type of products. Because if we go back to that hotel concierge analogy, that person, I think you've worked in hotels, Thibault, right? You've got a bit of that knowledge.
No, I've only been a guest.
Ah, well, yeah, many a time, I'm sure. Yeah. So, well, or I'm thinking restaurant hat on, because that's what I did when I was growing up, when I was a student and a young person. That concierge person who had that black book was such a smooth operator and so good at getting the right tickets to the right show or the right football game or the right restaurant for the guest, almost preempting what their needs were. And that is the exciting part of it. You can't just rely on technology, it's also hospitality. So I think it's a fun area of the business for sure.
I remember back when I was working at booking.com, right, the big OTA, we were looking, I think I created the first insurance product, not created, but like worked with a big company and did that for them. And we had to stop after 3 months because it was what we were doing was a bit dangerous in the end. Some lawyers found out. But anyway, when I was doing this, I was looking at what Verbo was doing at the time. And it looked like the attachment rate. So let's say when you the damage waiver was very high. Like it looked like to me, I was very amazed by, for example, how in the US, because it's a US thing mainly, I would think, people take a lot of damage waivers, and there's a lot of money to be made for a vacation rental manager. So can you explain, when you hear this, does it make sense, and why do you think so? Is it because it's something that's sold? You talk about monetizing risk, or is it because it's sold at a moment where it's actually a substitution to something that's more expensive, like like real damage or something like this, or is it because it works because it's sold at what somebody's booking? I'm just trying to think why you think that was working better, and then what else could we try to sell or upsell here that could work on about the same model?
Yeah, sure. It's a really good question. You're right. Let's dig into it. So I think firstly, the most important thing is that it's sold to that guest after their booking has been confirmed, but before they've been given their access instructions, right? So you say, and so it's in the screening journey when they're using your portal, which, if you work with someone like Superhog, it's all white labeled with your branding. And you say to the guest at that point, okay, pay a $500 security deposit or pay $50 non-refundable. And if you damage anything up to $500, we won't chase you. And the psychology of that, and again, remember, you can play with the rate, so you can test and learn. If you're in a market with lower ADRs, you might want to make that 30. If you're in a party market with hot tubs and jacuzzis and roof terraces, you might want to make that $200, and your security deposit might want to be $4,000. So you play with your own levels. We're just providing you the tools to facilitate it. We're just doing the transaction for you, then sending you the revenue ultimately. So I would give optionality, because then the guest goes, great, they've not got my credit card down. And people always worry about your credit card being down as well. They think, well, if I did 10 grand's worth of damage, maybe they'd take from my credit card. Now, most likelihood is in reality, they wouldn't, because they'd cancel it or whatever. But there's a psychology behind that. When I go and stay somewhere, Thibault and I were obviously both parents. We talk about that a lot. I know that for my daughter, there's no distinction between the artist's canvas and the host's walls and doors. She goes at them with as much enthusiasm as she wants. Or, she might decide that she's a drummer, and that drum might be the host coffee table. So if someone said to me, you can spend $40 on something that's going to stop us chasing you for damage up to $500, I'd take that, because I'd say that's good. That's like good walking around money. And you'll find that if you price it right, if you provide that option, you can convert 85% of guests over to choosing the waiver over the deposit. But you've got to get your numbers right for your market. So that's the first thing. And then, so it's its placement in the journey. That's the first thing. And then the other thing to say is go back a stage to the listing or the website and make sure it's really clear that they're going to have to pay a deposit when they book. And then you delight them because they've thought, I'm going to have to pay a deposit. And then they get to the screen, they go, oh, I don't need to. I can pay. I can pay less. There's plenty more I could say about that. I'm just trying to think which direction. Oh yeah, so I could say, and if you do then choose to do that, you will generate a ton of revenue, and you'll only end up paying out in actual damages probably around 10% of what you generate. Now, there's also no evidence to suggest that you're more likely to see damage when someone's paid the waiver over deposit, because most people click and buy and forget about it. And we're all nervous about deliberate damage. Really, accidental damage is the thing, as I give with my example of my daughter. I'm a good person. I don't come into trash properties, but my daughter is a flight risk. Okay. Another thing I like about this, if you're a property manager looking after hosts, properties who have nothing to do with it, your full management is part of your sales pitch then becomes, look, if anything happens up to $500, don't worry about it. We will replace it. And so instead of having to be that awkward conversation about like, there's a massive scratch on the wooden floor where they've rolled a suitcase over it, or there's damage on the stairs wall over and above wear and tear, or do you know what? Maybe it is even wear and tear, but you want to keep the host happy. It gives you revenue to be able to do that. So it's very, very, very useful and puts essentially the money in your hands. So as a property management company, you can be really generous and delight your host wherever you need to.
So you also mentioned, because you guys also work before the booking happens or before, so some in preemptive ways. You talk about conversations, capture more details. In other, think about other products that we can sell, upsell, cross-sell. What have you seen? What else works, right? Is there anything that's close, for example, in the way it's sold, before, after, or there's a substitution that seems very high, so it looks like a bargain to choose that option? What have you seen work? And can we draw any characteristics here and why they work?
Yeah, maybe it's useful to split it into 3 sections. The first section being around the time they're booking. So your website. One is straight away post booking when they're going through your check-in process, and the other is in stay. So I think there's 3 opportunities there to sell to your customer, and the technology is least useful to you when they're in the property, because at that point they're off. They're in the city. They're at the beach. They're exploring. But there's still amazing things you can do in property, right? Where you can be leaving wine in a fridge that's locked. There's different bits and bobs you can do, or you leave a menu of things that you're recommending, concierge services. You can do that, but that's obviously a strain on your logistics. So let's park that particular side. Although you can have a whole different conversation on that. Where I've seen it done really effectively before booking is, again, preempting what you think the needs are of your customer on your direct booking website. So if you know, for example, that people are coming to your part of the world because there is a particular restaurant that everybody goes to, at that point, there's an opportunity to think about bundling that experience. If you have a townhouse in central London that has parking or access to parking, sell it. Sell it on the website. Be like, click £50 to park for 4 days, and then you make sure you've moved your car, or you make sure you've gone and got that voucher. It's thinking about what someone might want alongside that experience. And I think that increasingly website builders are doing a lot of that for you, right? So you could be asking your website builder, can you bundle it with the car hire? Can you bundle it with the bus ticket? Can you bundle it with the theater and dinner for 2 package? So it's trying to ahead of time think about when someone's got their credit card out ready to buy, what might they buy? And the big ticket item there is trip cancellation. That's the big ticket item, because they're most likely going to go, yeah, you're right, something might go wrong. If you use someone like us, you would then make revenue from that. But again, so lots of things. It's preempting people's needs in the pre-arrival time. Then when they're in your check-in flow, obviously, I've talked about risk, trust products and risk management, which is what Superhog does. But clearly, there's a massive opportunity to provide services that are actually quite appealing. So, is it an anniversary? Would you like us to put champagne and roses in the apartment? Would you like a private chef? They're the ones that work best. I'm sorry, the obvious one is the fridge fill, but the fridge fill is very hard to monetize, and it's logistically heavy. But for me, it's the fridge fill, or it's the delighting somebody with a private chef, a private massage, romantic dinner, or all the items bought for a romantic dinner, so I can put it in the oven and make it look like I've cooked it. So it's trying to tailor that, and a lot of that you'll be able to tease out if you're asking people in your marketing why they're coming to stay. So even if you're not using technology there, you could ask people why they're coming to stay, try and learn more about them. Then you send them a WhatsApp and you say, by the way, this chef can be in your property tonight and they can cook this for you and I can arrange it all for you. And the ability to do that is sounds quite simple when you think that you've taken the time just to try and get to know a little bit more about why that person's coming. What I wouldn't do though at that point is overdo the technology part of it. I wouldn't be sort of showing people reams and reams and reams of different options. If you want to widen your bucket, I would then say you're looking at using guidebooks and dedicated resource, things like Mount, things like the hosting company, where you can redirect people so they can go and look through a catalog and buy whatever services they want from that company, and you just receive a portion of the upsell. So I think you tailor a few, as I've said, or you go mass. And if you're going mass, I think you subcontract that out to a dedicated platform. I don't know if you agree with some or any of that, Thibault.
Oh, it's very interesting because in a way, to me, I mean, it's in closing remarks of our talk today. But what's interesting though, as a revenue manager, or if I'm looking at profits, right? Obviously, you can't touch upon that, right? The purely virtual thing I can resell, or like from provided by a third party like you, for example, Mount, for example. No logistics on my side and pure profit in a way. Whereas, as you said, fridge. Great service, you have to give them a list, and that's just only going to get what's on the list. Very, very clear about that. Margin, yeah, indeed, it's tricky, right? So it is very interesting. You're right. There's massage you can make some money off. If you can get 10% and not 20%, I know how you can jack up the prices here. But is there anything you've seen, like, just to conclude on that, any kind of service like where there's actual operational stuff happening, where people make good margin, that could be good margins, and that could be a good idea to people to look into?
Yeah, I think it's very market specific, but you knew that, right? Like, so that's what makes it really interesting, is that it's really market specific, and that goes back to my original point, which is know your market. Think about what the must do things are when you're in stay, and how can you hook around them. And I think the greatest example of that is the adventure tourism thing, right? So if you are somewhere close to mountains, close to beach, it's organizing some sort of extreme sport, skiing, guided tour, helicopter, jump out of a helicopter and ski down the mountain from the top. It's that stuff that you wouldn't think to do, but you're really close to. So, if you're in the Alps and you're already there for skiing, you can't buy them a ski pass. They've already bought it. But you can elevate that experience with the heli skiing afternoon. So it's definitely very market specific, and we could sit here for hours and work it out on each market. But it's trying to think, if I am going to have to handhold this, and it's going to be a little bit labor intensive, the juice has to be worth the squeeze, and I have to be taking my 10% has to be worth something. And clearly, your heli skiing 10% would be worth making a phone call or two.
I really love how heli skiing is your example of upselling. So it's Leo, if people want to get a hold of you, get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Sure. So my email is leo@superhog.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Superhog_Leo, or I'm on LinkedIn, or just reach out to the company directly at Superhog on both LinkedIn and Instagram.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your insights and for your time today.
Thank you.
You take care.